When you're looking at clauses, it has to have one subject and one verb. One clause has to have a subject and a verb. How many subjects, how many verbs do we have? We have one. We have one subject, one verb. So how many clauses do we have?
One.
We have one. We have one clause. So where do you think our brackets are going to go? Where should we start? Where should our starting bracket be?
Well, the.
We would start at the. We would start at the, because we don't want to have the outside. If we do, that means it needs to make sense on its own. Okay? Right now, the wouldn't make sense by itself because it doesn't have a verb with it. All right? Now, where does this clause end? So where are we going to close our bracket off at? I hear acorns and I hear nest. So let's look at acorns first. If I put it here at the end of acorns, that means to its nest also has to have a subject and a verb. Every word in a sentence has to be part of a clause, or you have fragments. You could say the squirrel took acorns. That would make sense on its own. But to its nest would not be a clause that makes sense on its own. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So your brackets would end at nest. Every word has to be part of a clause and make sense. If not, you have fragments. So our entire clause is the squirrel took acorns to its nest. Does that clause make sense by itself, or does it need help with being understood?
It makes sense on its own.
It makes sense on its own. How many of you set your own alarm clock, you wake yourself up in the morning, and you get out of bed, you're able to get moving all on your own? Raise your hand. Does that mean you're more independent or you're dependent? In this case, since the sentence makes sense or the clause makes sense on its own, is it independent or dependent?
Independent.
It's independent. I always use that example of if it's going to be independent, it's got to be able to do things on its own. Makes sense on its own. Some of you that believe you're independent and you can't even wake up to your own alarm clock, not quite there.
I would use an alarm clock, except every alarm clock that I've ever used can't wake me up.
Okay, so that is still not the alarm clock's fault. I'm not.
Sleep like a rock.
I do.
All right, so let's refocus on our DGP, not on the alarm clock analogy. All right. So, looking at your help notes, right? If we go to our help notes, now we need to find out the sentence type. The sentence type. With finding out the sentence type, you have to, finding out the sentence type, you need to look at simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, and a compound complex, correct? All right, so a simple sentence has how many clauses? One independent clause. A compound sentence has what? Two or more independent clauses. Two or more independent clauses. A complex sentence has what?
One independent clause and one or more dependent clauses.
One independent clause or one or more dependent clauses. Okay? A compound complex has multiple of each, or at least one dependent, but two independent for sure. All right? Do we have a simple sentence, a compound sentence, a complex sentence, or a compound complex sentence? I heard complex. Where's our dependent clause? Because we have to have a... That's part of our independent. There's no subject or verb in this clause. It's a simple sentence. One independent clause is a simple sentence. One independent clause is a simple sentence. Now, once you click that little N bar, there's 4 examples of a simple sentence, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has DEC, which is declarative, IMP, which is imperative, EXC, which is exclamatory, and INT, which is interrogative or interrogative, depending on what part of the country you're from. Okay? I'll say that every time because it really does depend. I don't know why. There you are. Culture. Now, an interrogative question is, or an interrogative statement is a question. Are we asking this as a question? The squirrel. Oh, I didn't even get to finish it. Is anyone yelling this? The squirrel took its acorns to the nest. No, that seems weird. Yeah. Is this a command? That's what imperative means. It means a command. Are we giving a command? Are we telling the squirrel to take the acorns to its nest?
No.
So we have a declarative. Declarative simply means that we're stating it as fact. This is the way it is. It just is. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Any questions about DGP Wednesday? Because we are finished. Now, the one thing I will say is that this box at the beginning, right here, you don't have to do anything with it. Typically, what you'll do is you'll copy and paste that over your clause. But I wanted to give you an example of where you should put your clause box, so I went ahead and copied it and pasted it for you. Next week, you'll have to do it on your own. Okay?
Okay.
That is DGP Wednesday.